The Trump administration rightfully has received the lion's share of the criticism for what they've done and what they haven't done during this pandemic. But there's criticism to go around because seemingly no one in a position of power to actually do something to assist the American people during this pandemic seems to take it as seriously or seems to understand the nature of the struggle of working Americans in the way that they should. And joining us now to discuss some of the issues that have cropped up in recent relief bills that have been proposed, the author and campaigns manager for Equal Citizens, Adam Eichen, welcome back to the Damage Report.
Thanks for having me, John.
Good to have you here once again. We were talking before this video, and I said that you've been busy, and one of the ways that you've been busy is you've co-founded a new organization, right?
That is correct. A couple friends and I started the Democratic Policy Center, and the idea is that we are focusing on progressive reform, and we essentially wanted to create a war room in this crisis to perpetually advocate for reforms across all issues that will benefit the American public, whether that be Medicare for all, expanding voting rights, or making sure that corporate influence is taken out of Washington, D.C., which, as we'll talk about, corporations had quite a bit to be happy about in the HEROES Act.
Yeah, they've got people in the room as that's been put together. So, what was the starting point for launching the organization? What led you to want to do that?
So we were in talks about forming the Democratic Policy Center for a while, and then we got wind that there was a bipartisan effort in Congress before the HEROES Act was released on a standalone bill, H.R. 6697. And what it would do is it would extend the PPP eligibility, so forgivable loans, free money, to 501c6 organizations. So those are trade associations. Those are, industry groups that their entire DNA is to influence policy for business interests. Mm-hmm. And again, this is money that was supposed to be for small businesses, and they were extending it to trade associations. And so the cap in the House bill was any C6 organization with fewer than 300 or fewer employees would be eligible. And we thought to ourselves, well, how many C6 organizations have 300 or fewer employees? And we ran the numbers, and it was 99.8% of them. And that included groups like AHIP, one of the top insurers for the health insurance lobby, Pharma, which is the major drug manufacturing lobby, and it also even included the trade association for the Koch brothers, Stand Together Chamber of Commerce. So this bipartisan bill would bail out some of the largest trade associations, lobbying groups in Washington, D.C.
Well, it seems like it's a significant error to base it almost solely on number of employees when these aren't employers in the traditional sense. They have a certain number of lobbyists that they need. They keep them employed. But in terms of the money backing this organization, it's difficult to come up with a set of groups that are better funded than these trade associations. So it seems like there should be some sort of further consideration before making huge quantities of money available to them.
Right. That's exactly right. And frankly, I just don't think that they did their homework in this. I mean, the vast majority, and I'm talking the vast, vast majority of C6 organizations have like 20 or fewer employees. Mm-hmm. Right. And so to set the bar at 300 is really the only purpose. It's either just negligence or an explicit attempt to bail out these massive corporate lobbies, which again, their entire purpose is to block progressive change.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the lobbies that are fighting against Medicare for all. But here's the thing, John, is that standalone bill had some legs. It has 99 co-sponsors.
Wow.
But then we got the text of the HEROES Act, and there was a little bit of grumbling about, Nancy Pelosi and House leadership wanting to do something similar. But when the text came out, we dug into it, and somewhere in the hundreds of pages of the omnibus, we found that not only was the C6 bailout in there, it was worse than the standalone.
How was it worse?
Well, any nonprofit would qualify regardless of number of employees. It would include, in the original draft, 501c4 organizations that were politically active, so-called dark money groups, so like Americans for Prosperity, the Koch network group, and as well as any of these C6 organizations. And better yet, it would designate 25% of the remaining funds of PPP funds for nonprofits, and half of that money would be assigned to any nonprofit with 500 or fewer employees. And get this, 99% of trade organizations qualify for that money because they have 500 fewer employees, including, of all people, the Chamber of Commerce, which is maybe the largest corporate law group and is a perpetual opponent of any sort of center-left change, let alone progressive change. I mean, they're one of the kind of the most heinous groups in DC, and they're going to get, they're going to be competing against small nonprofit. They're considered a small nonprofit under the House bill, and we raised the alarm about this. And we did win some concessions. They added, they struck the eligibility for dark money groups, so politically active C4. So that was a small victory. Yes, small victory. And it also makes sure that no money can cover registered lobbyists, John. But here's the thing. These organizations, in their DNA, is to influence policy. Yeah. So even if you're not covering the expenses of lobbyists, they're still lobbying groups, and you're still opening up additional, money. You're still covering certain expenses that then will open up more of their own money for covering their lobbyists. Exactly. So the entire bill is just asinine. It's totally crazy.
Has Nancy Pelosi or have anyone in Democratic leadership been asked about how the standalone bill transitioned to its inclusion in the HEROES Act? Why it still has these super loose provisions that will allow some of the groups that you mentioned to receive funds?
No, I mean, to my knowledge, they haven't gone on record defending this. And I think that the reason is it's very hard to defend it. In fact, I don't think there is a justification. Again, I think they didn't do their homework. And I get it. It's a big bill, but it's absolutely outrageous that we'd be bailing out the Chamber of Commerce of all groups when millions of Americans have lost their health care and their jobs. This is not the time to bail out the Chamber of Commerce and these other trade associations that, again, have endless wealth. I mean, they can access endless wealth, and they have in the past. I mean, groups like AHIP were really instrumental in trying to launch a campaign and run the campaign against Obamacare a decade ago. Again, these are not friends of the Democratic Party. And the troubling thing, John, is that there's also movement in the Senate, bipartisan movement in the Senate for this same idea. At least 22 senators have signed a letter asking for PPP eligibility be extended to C6 organizations. So it's still very much in flux. But the thing is that I think that this position is this idea is so vile in some respects, in given the current crisis, that by raising the issue, I think we have a chance to actually kill it.
Yeah, I hope
because
so.
I just think it's not defensible.
Yeah, and I wonder early on when it was found that some like I think Ruth's Chris Steakhouse got some money. Like there was public backlash to that, and supposedly the money was given back. There were a few cases of that. Is that what we're hoping for at this point? That if we talk about it in the media, if you're an organization makes a big stink about it, that maybe we can shame them into modifying the bill? Is that sort of the strategy?
I mean, that's certainly what we're going to try and do. I mean, I think that, what we want to do is we want to really raise a ruckus around this. We want to say that this is absolutely inexcusable in the current crisis to bail out these corporate lobbying groups. And so, we want to launch a campaign of people across the country, especially in districts where the members of Congress or in the states where there are senators who have sponsored these bills or expressed support for this idea. We want to run an LTE and op-ed campaign. We want to raise this issue. We want media outlets to cover it because I know there's a lot of attention being paid to the many other aspects of the HEROES Act. And especially given this crisis, there are many, many, many horrible things to be reporting on that are essential for the public good. But this is a real inexcusable provision that I think that, if we shine some sunlight on it, we might actually be able to kill it. And if it goes through, then you're right. Maybe we have to shame some of these trade associations and say, you're not a small business. The Chamber of Commerce isn't a small nonprofit. The American Petroleum Institute is not a small nonprofit. And again, we have to shame some of these people who have put their names onto this bill. The list is online for HR 9/7. I mean, for example, Joe Kennedy, who's trying to challenge progressive Senator Ed Markey. Yep. Why is his name on the bill? Someone should ask.
I think we know. But yeah, I ask anyway, but I think we understand exactly why he would back something like that. And in addition, you have a petition online right now on the website for the group, correct?
Correct. And we're going to be, launching more petitions. We're going to be trying, again, to sound the alarm as this develops. I mean, this is a pretty arcane subject, but the ramifications are big.
Yeah.
And so, we're here to, we're not really taking a salary right now. We just kind of founded this because we wanted to fight back. And so we're just, volunteering at this point to use our expertise to interpret these laws and explain their ramifications. Yeah. And so anybody who's interested in following our work, signing up for our newsletter, signing the petition, just staying up to date, you can find us at dempolicy.com, and you can find us on Twitter. We're pretty active there. Awesome. But I really do think, John, that this is so indefensible that I think we can kill it.
I certainly hope so, and I hope that we can do so before the huge quantities of money start flowing out. And we need to start targeting individual groups. Target the bill right now. Target the people pushing it. Hopefully, and thank you for your work in this area, helping to raise awareness about it.
Thanks, John. Always a pleasure.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.